Hello, and welcome to What Moves Us, the podcast where we ask what moves us, or more accurately, what's going to move us in future.
With the Rail Innovation Group's Johannah Randall and Liam Henderson, we look at debates, themes, and decisions of the minute that will impact on the way we get about in the future.
Johannah, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
Very good. Chance for us to catch up today is the very end of August. Later in the pod, we have an interview with Rob Forde from the Global Centre of Rail Excellence, which I did. I spoke to him yesterday. So we'll get to that at the end. But in advance of that, tell me about, it's August. Tell me about your summer.
I haven't done anything.
Been doing transport? Been anywhere?
No, I haven't been anywhere.
Wow. What have you been learning about mobility? This pod is What Moves Us. What moves you?
Staying at home.
Goodness.
That's shocking. That's shocking, isn't it?
This is what happens when you move out to the countryside.
No, it's because as listeners may know, am I in rural Scotland?
I would say you were in very rural Scotland, yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't feel so rural. But But we always take our holiday in June.
Right.
Always have done, part from the fact that it is our wedding anniversary. So that is one of the reasons why we always take our holiday in June. Did I tell you about my holiday? Because it is of interest.
Is it mobility?
Because we travelled by rail. Mm-hmm. all the way. So we travelled from Pitlochry down to London, caught the Eurostar, and eventually ended up at Oberstdorf in the Bavarian Alps via Luxembourg, which we'd never been to before. But one of those places when you're stood at Brussels thinking, I wonder what Luxembourg is like. So we spent a couple of days in Luxembourg and it was very pleasant. And we then went to Koblenz, and we had a few days in Koblenz, and we were just reminiscing about Koblenz, about how lovely it was. And when we were there during Corpus Christi, and they had this lovely party in the park there where everybody dressed in white, and it was quite beautiful. It really was. And then we took a trip down the Rhine to a place called Bacharach. And what was quite fascinating about that trip going down the Rhine is just how busy the Rhine is, not just in terms of its waterways, but also in terms of the amount of freight that goes up and down on the railway tracks that goes up both sides of the river. I mean, there must have been a train going past on either side every 90 seconds. It was quite phenomenal to watch. And if anybody's interested, I took lots of videos of it, so we could post one on our feed if we wanted to.
Sure. So would you say there was more freight on the rail beside the Rhine than on the Rhine?
I would say so, yes, definitely. But of course, there was a mixture. I mean, and obviously we were there, in peak holiday period, so there was a lot of tourism going on, and it really is a pleasant way to travel going that way down the Rhine. And so we ended up going to Oberstdorf, which is a walking region of Germany, but also a ski resort in the winter, like many of these places are. Very, very beautiful. And I quite often wonder whether I should recommend these places, because you don't find many British people there, because they are a lot of places we do go to on rail journeys. And that is what's great about doing a rail journey, is that you kind of look for different places to go to. So it's as much about the journey as the destination where you're ending up on. So you do lots of things on the way back. We went via Alsace, and so it's as much about the journey as it is about the destination. And I think it's quite interesting when you think about, what's been happening this week with the air traffic control failure and everything. Everyone trying to think about how you get back when flying, potentially isn't an option. Is that there's so many European destinations where you can actually get back to London in a day. I mean, we've done Salzburg in a day. We've done Barcelona in a day, as you know. Well, we did all the way from Madrid in a day, didn't we? Back to London.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. We've done, many places in Germany. You can do Italy. I'd say there aren't many places in Europe actually where you can't, if you don't mind traveling for 18 hours, that you can't do in a day. But it's tremendous fun and very relaxing, I think, in comparison to flying, just because once you're on the train, you're on the train.
Yeah, just long. So any lessons learned for us and our developing transport system?
Oh, now there's a question. I don't know, because the European network is just so much bigger, isn't it? I mean, and it's so I think the big thing about it is that it's integrated. There's no, we are so conditioned, I think, to having to wait long time sometimes for connections, because it's a bit like, we were looking at going to a place in Scotland last week called Broughty Ferry, and we think, wouldn't it be nice to go by train? But the train takes 3 hours because you have a 40-minute wait at Perth, a 40-minute wait at Dundee, and for less, for just over an hour you can drive. So I think that's really the lesson, that the system is joined up. So sometimes when you think, that's a sharp connection, I've only got 7 or 8 minutes to get across platforms, and you're not too sure because it's not so familiar, and that is that it does seem to work. It does. Sometimes it is tight, but it does work. So I think that would be my thing, is look at connections and make it more integrated.
Okay, good, top tips. Fine. I have been enjoying a summer of railway strikes, which has made getting back and forth interesting. Play a lot of sport.
Back and forth from where?
Well, I'm based in London, so it's been going to various cities around the south of England. I play a lot of sport, so it's been interesting seeing sort of how other people are navigating around the railway strikes, which is basically ask someone to drive, which is not the best thing, but what happens. And then to getting to various national parks, it's been get the train as far as you can and then work out a local bus or ferry or cycle.
So I'd be interested, because obviously, because you are very pro public transport, I'm very pro active transport. When the strikes are resolved, will you go back to your travel, normal travel, shall we say, back to traveling by rail, rail first or bus first or whatever? Or will some of those habits that you have acquired over the strike days, have they been now reinforced, and you have a more preferred, another preferred way of traveling now?
Oh no, because the train is still the most convenient way to get anywhere. It's just that it's inconvenient those days there are strikes on, and if I don't have to make the journey, I don't. And if I do, I have gone another way and been annoyed that the train isn't running.
And do you think that's a position that you can take, because in the southeast, it still is the most convenient way to travel?
Oh yes, but then we're spoiled down where I am.
Because I wonder, sort of like outside of the southeast, how much this the strikes are impacting on people's behaviour, because it's a bit like, because it always reminds me of when I was at the Department for Transport, when David Halpin was heading up the nudge unit for number 10, was that they always said that strike days were good for active transport in London, because people went another way. So that's one of the reasons why more people cycle, for example, because they tried a different way of getting somewhere or doing something differently. So I wonder, sort of, because I certainly drive more, not necessarily because of strike, but just because of the convenience, and I wonder whether that will sort of like that reinforces that behavior, doesn't it? Or the continuous disruption, or even the perceived continuous disruption.
Having been a transport professional for a while, it is very sad to see lots of this work to get people onto public transport undermined and reversed. But I don't put the blame for that purely on strikes. I think a lot of the messaging coming out of public policy at the moment seems to be in favour of cars and motor transport. It's been quite sad over the summer, the reversal of some of the active travel the direction we were going for that.
Why do you think current government policy does seem to be following this route
of
promoting personal transport, shall we say, or the car over other forms?
Well, not declaring a political interest, it's obvious because they think there's votes in it. Whether there is,
do you think it's as simple as that? Because I think it's interesting, because voting, because I don't think transport is ever a big issue when sort of like people are voting at the ballot. It's not in your top 3 things, is it, that people are thinking about?
Let's clarify that. Public transport isn't the top 3 things when you're driving.
Yeah. At
the ballot box.
I can't say I've ever even thought about the car when I'm at the ballot box, because I think it's interesting bringing it around to that, in the whole, particularly, because you are in London and the whole ULEZ situation, isn't it, in the way that this has become this political hot potato, isn't it, when, probably the average person thinks it's a good thing.
I wasn't in London at the time, but I understand that the congestion charge, when that first came in, was politically controversial, and then that seems to have just bedded in. And then when the ULEZ Central London came in, that seems to have just bedded in. So I kind of just assumed that the ULEZ will just bed in.
But that's always the same with time. That's always the same with projects like this. If people just get used to the new norm, don't they?
Yeah,
it'll just become a new norm.
Yes. So depressing that way, but can't do much about it at the moment. Have to see what's in the party manifestos for the next election next year. Now, it is the end of August, so let's just whip through what's coming up this autumn, because it does seem like everyone has been on holiday for a very long time. Every email I've sent has had a out of office. So, what have you got?
There's an answer to that. Don't send emails.
They're out of office. No, actually, I was at a lunch with someone from Italy who said it's really frustrating now because they have noticed that Brits have started to take more and more time off in summer. But whereas in Italy, they take all of August off, it's a bit of a, stereotypical, but they take all of August off. And so everyone knows no one works in August. Whereas she found it really frustrating that between about July and end of September in the UK, about a third of people are off at one time. So you can never really coordinate. Everything just ends up having to wait until...
I mean, that's one of the issues with productivity in the UK. Because it's just like a 2-month holiday.
Probably, yeah. Waiting for the next national event for another bank holiday. But what do we have coming up with the Rail Innovation Group? Well, we are waiting upon confirmation of a venue for our event that we're going to do with the European Space Agency and the UK Space Agency, which should be at the end of October. So that's going to be very exciting, about using space-based technology in rail.
So where is that going to be, in London or somewhere else?
That will be in London. We are also having, what's the other thing we're working on at the moment? We're trying to work on an event. Sorry, we are in discussion with someone to host an event for us about, given that the Rail Innovation Group focuses on startups and SMEs, is what are your long-term options if you should thrive, regarding sort of investment or whatnot.
Oh, that should be interesting.
Yes. So we're working on those 2 events at the moment. And then in the background, we're talking a lot about data in rail, because that's coming to the fore. So you'll hear more and more about making data available, availability of things, commercialization. I believe at the same time, the other organization, Railway Industry Association, are doing a decade of digital, I think, on rail. Decade of data? Don't know. But that is a issue coming to the fore. So we will try and explain what that means for our members over the period. Other than that, I think I'm seeing you in Vienna, am I? World Passenger Festival is coming up in October.
I think so. I haven't booked yet.
Well, that's something to look forward to, because we are the innovation partner for them. And we are also the innovation partner for Rail Live in Madrid at the end of November. So an action-packed October and November. September, October, November, and December. Autumn, some might say.
Autumn. And Do you think we can, in wider industry things, be looking forward to railway legislation in the King's Speech? Or do you think it's...
You ask my personal opinion or the Rail Innovation Group's opinion?
Rail Innovation Group's opinion.
We are encouraged to welcome any legislation that makes things easier for small companies and startups.
So that's not particularly in relation to railway.
Depends. I mean, a lot of the stuff in the full act, should it ever go through, of Great British Railways would help startups and SMEs open by default, for example, with regard to data. Whether that can get through this Parliament is a different question. It's quite late now in the term. So it might be that we have to wait for the election and then to see what happens afterwards. I think that is hamstringing. It is delaying a lot of decision making, waiting for the election. But as happened, I have noticed this, as happened during COVID, when companies looked a bit more insular, they sort of worked on their products and their use cases and came back sort of bouncing at the end. They bounce back. So I hope that that will be the case whenever.
Yes, I think it probably is the case, because certainly, I mean, not just from a startup SME point of view, is a lot of organisations I speak to, they're trying to, I wouldn't say survive, but put themselves in a position where when the opportunity is there, then they can thrive. Yeah. Because I think part of the issue is that I think there is so much uncertainty, not just with an election, but with lots of things that people are reluctant to invest time and effort. So they'd rather just concentrate on what's working at the moment. Yeah. And wait for conditions to improve, I think, is the phrase I would use.
Well, that is an excellent segue for our interview, saying grasp every opportunity, because that's essentially the final message from Rob. So without further ado, I will go straight to that interview with Rob, who I began by asking him to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Rob Forde. I'm the Strategy and Skills Director at the Global Centre of Rail Excellence.
And that is what most people have heard of as GCRE.
GCRE, yeah.
But it's not a three-letter acronym, as Rail loves.
No, it's four. It's where the cool kids are now, with the four-letter acronyms. So,
right. And tell us where it is.
It's in Wales, in a place called Oncloyne. Hopefully, I've got that right. Otherwise, I'll be killed by my colleagues. It's on the site of an old coal mine,
right?
That we're bringing back into life by building this test track there. So the concept is we are building a 7-kilometre vehicle test track and an infrastructure test loop. So both will be loops, so you can go round and round at your heart's content with your brand new shiny train or your old train that you want to fit some new kit to. And we're also, what makes us unique in terms of testing is we're going to have an infrastructure test loop, which is something that doesn't exist anywhere in Europe at the moment, where actually we're going to have to do experiments and tests and bring stuff in service and commission actual infrastructure. So if you've got a sleeper or a digital component or a collection device that you want to test in a realistic environment, we're going to have that facility. We're also going to be able to test things to destruction or near destruction to really understand the limits that some of our infrastructure can go through, which is something that we don't do at the moment. And actually is probably more the worse for it in sometimes some of the infrastructure that we put in there. We also have to test a lot of the infrastructure on the operational railway, which isn't ideal either. So we're going to be a unique setting within Europe that you can do this kind of testing. Right.
So given you said testing to destruction, I'm assuming you're not testing new trains on new infrastructure at the same time.
No. So the aim is we have a vehicle test loop, which is 7 kilometres, which is predominantly used for vehicle testing. So our primary use for that loop will be for vehicles. So that's testing new vehicles before they come into service, for approvals, or testing new systems that have been installed to existing trains. Adjacent to that, with at least a 10-foot, but we're also going to have an enhanced safety area where we can do some more extreme testing. We'll have a vehicle test loop, an infrastructure test loop, where we will test our infrastructure products. The aim is that every 10 weeks, we will put a vast amount of traffic over that. We've got our own rolling stock we've bought that we're going to load up and put around 40,000 megatons through the infrastructure.
Right.
Every 10 weeks.
Okay, I have many other questions to ask you, but one thing's just coming to my head, which is if you're testing for destruction and etc., how do you propose to sort of replicate future climate change problems in South Wales?
Well, if you come to the site at some point, then you'll see we get all 4 seasons in one day, even in the middle of summer. So I don't think that will be a massive challenge for us. Also, the site is unique that we can set up tests. So, if you want to see what would happen in a washout, we'd be able to set that up. Maybe not on our infrastructure test loop. Maybe we'll have another bit of trap that we can do more extreme tests like that on. But we will be able to run, any sort of infrastructure test that we want. We'll be able to, as long as we can get the kit in space, be able to simulate that cyclical effect of climate change as well. Because climate change isn't necessarily what happens when the track floods, because when the track floods, you have to do something to bring it back into service. It's more, how do we operate with increased heat? How do we operate with more extreme temperatures? So it might be really cold in the morning and extremely hot in the afternoon, because that's where infrastructure really suffers. And we'll be able to create some of those simulations on site.
Right. Okay. So I sense the excitement in your voice anyway, but I did have to ask, why did you want to be involved with this project?
For me, it's an absolutely unique thing to be involved in. It's so exciting. I've been involved in the rail industry for well over 15 years now. And one of the biggest frustrations is that we can't do a lot of stuff we're going to be able to do on site here. We can understand before we ever bring anything into service how it's going to perform, and we can accelerate some of the learning. We can also do some more extreme and exciting stuff there that's been a real limitation because we haven't got a facility like that. And I think I can add a lot to that with my experience. So I was really excited to become part of the GCRE family. And it's also a small organisation at the moment, so we can be a lot more agile than in some of the previous organisations I've been involved in. So I'm really excited about that as well.
Right. So in terms of its sort of early days, are you, given your job title, are you making sure to sort of embed some of your beliefs in the early days in terms of open-mindedness or creative solutions?
But I'd say there's 3 things that have always been something I've tried to bring into work. The first one is, as you say, being open-minded and being creative. And also, I don't know all the answers. So I need to be open-minded to make sure we do the right things on site and we work with people. So yes, I'm totally trying to embed that into what we're doing. One of those things is having a flexible site. We always talk about what we're going to construct on day one, but I always bring people back to, well, day one will probably be about 75% right. And then over time, we'll add and we'll change and we'll adapt and we'll learn and we'll increase what we're doing. And when I say 75% right, it'll be what we'll want and what we'll need right then. But that will need to change and adapt and move. And it's almost probably going to constantly be a construction site where we're adding stuff in, we're taking stuff away, and we're changing it. So that's one thing, to bring that open-minded stuff to it. The second bit is commerciality. So something I've learned massively and had several failures when I was in the Netrail R&D team is not thinking about commerciality early enough in the process. And I really want to bring that to the customers and the clients and the people we work with on site. Actually, you've got an idea. A key part of working out how you bring that idea into service is how you sell it. Who's going to buy it? How are you going to make it marketable? Are you actually dealing with a problem that's worth solving? There have been some fantastic innovations I've seen in my time, amazing things that don't really solve a problem, or they solve a problem that's already been solved and they don't do it any cheaper or more effectively. So I really want to bring that into it. I love technology. we all love technology if we're in that sector, but something I'm really passionate about is actually making sure that you can bring it into use, and it isn't a great bit of technology that again sits on a shelf or comes in and doesn't really work because you're not thought about the people and the commercial side of it. So that's the second thing. But the third thing is partnership. I think I learned an awful lot of that in the last 5 years. Is critical to have partnerships and understand what you don't know. And again, that's the third thing I'm bringing into role, that we need to work with others. We need to partner really closely with experts to make a group expert team, if that makes sense, and to bring people in to enhance our offering, and to bring people together. Sometimes my role, I see in the future, will literally be bringing different people in different areas of the industry or other industry adjacent industries together to bring something into service or to test it or to bring stuff through. That's how I see my role and what I'm trying to bring into the role.
Right. Okay. So understand what you don't know, your known unknowns and unknown unknowns. And partnerships. That is good. So getting down to business, which is seamlessly moving into the opportunities for startups. We are very keen to highlight the need of startups as micro companies. How will they be involved in this?
So that's one of the key things I'm trying to work out at the moment. How do we engage with the market as a whole and the supply chain as a whole, and then how do we engage with different sectors? Because different sectors have different capability, they have different availability to stuff. So your tier ones, they have money, they have capital, and they know exactly what they want. They have a supply chain. They're kind of our easy ones to work with, because they'll generally come in, they'll know what we want. You then got the SME community who you represent. I want to help massively promote SMEs in rail. They're critical, and there's been some key examples recently where SMEs have come in with a niche product that has just grown arms and legs. Ava being one of them, the One Big Circle product. Absolutely, I think it's a brilliant product, a brilliant concept, and it's grown arms and legs. And just from that one simple idea, has managed to do loads of stuff. And they've had lots of support from different people that were around in industry to help them do that. And I want to make sure GCRE does that with multiple SMEs going forwards. And that could be anything from helping and supporting people with their idea and how they get it through the complex approvals and that commerciality bit as well, that I think just goes all the way from first idea to how do you have version 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of your product. That for me. There's also quite a complex approvals process, and again, we want to be at the heart of that, helping SMEs and the supply chain through that approval cycle. One of our we've got 3 key core product lines, if you like, we want to offer as a business. One is vehicle testing, one is infrastructure testing, and the third one that I think we can help massively with the SMEs is showcasing. So actually having a site where you can have your product in situ on an operational railway, where we can bring clients in, or prospective clients, to come and see it in use. Because one of the things that is often a hard sell in rail is if you can't see it in operation, people don't believe it. And to get it into operation is very difficult and hard. We're going to cut a lot of the complexity and the bureaucracy out of that, and be able to help SMEs and the wider supply chain get their products actually into the track and into service. I also think, and I need to test this a little bit more, that this will improve the viability of rail products as something to invest in. So we don't have a lot of venture capitalists investing in rail products and tech companies in rail because they see it, I believe, because they see it as quite high risk. I think we can cut that risk considerably by actually allowing the supply chain or SMEs to put their product into a railway system, operate it, see it in use, bring clients along. And I think that will cut down a lot of the risk with the operational introduction of it. So there's some of the areas that I think we can help the SME community. I'm also keen, to be honest with you, back to my I don't know it all, I'm also keen to hear from SMEs. What do they think we can do for them? What do we need to offer? What can we do as an organisation, as a site, to make sure that we're as accommodating to SME clients as everyone else?
Right. Well, I'm sure we can funnel some opinions to them. They will be keen to contribute. As a general point, though, we talk about showcasing, etc. Is what do you think there's a risk in creating this site a long way away in South Wales, and people sort of more traditionally minded people might think, oh, it's okay, it's going on over there. I don't have to worry about innovation or creativity or anything else because they're doing it over there. How are you going to avoid that danger?
That's a very good question. And I think I try and invert that slightly. I think we are over there kind of, could be seen away from some of the main cities in England. So it could be at risk of being put away. But we're aiming to be a magnet site. We're aiming to be somewhere where we draw people in. We've got plans for a technology park, for instance, coming up. And we're going to work really hard to encourage the supply chain to come and have space on that technology park. So we aren't just somewhere that you come and test your product at the end, or somewhere in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere that's just doing some innovation and some R&D. We want to be at the heart of the whole ecosystem in rail. And we want people to come and work with us on site. The site's 700 hectares. That's probably one thing I haven't mentioned. And I struggled to get that into context until I went to site. And actually, what even helped me crystallise the size of the site even more is when Simon, our CEO, said, it's the same size as Gibraltar.
Yeah, right.
So it's huge, this site, and there's so much scope to do more there. So we don't just want to be a railway testing site. Actually, we want to be more of it. And that showcasing bit, actually, we expect to have a lot of people coming through the site to see some of that showcasing. So it doesn't become just somewhere over there. It's actually somewhere people are excited to come. They're excited to come and see new products being trialled and tested and actually proven in the railway system. And I believe that the site will become that magnet site where it won't just be happening over there. It will be somewhere people are at, and almost we come closer to everyone else because people want to be part of that and want to be involved in that.
Right. So have you had much buy-in in your conversations? Have you had much buy-in from wider industry yet into taking advantage of this site?
Massive. We've had massive interest, and I obviously can't go into any kind of commercial detail, but it ranges from people agreeing heads of terms of contracts. At the moment, we can't go into contract because we're going through our building investment phase. So as soon as we got some certainty over that, we'll go into contract. But it goes from heads of terms, memorandums of understanding. We've got vast loads, and we've got around 70 companies signed up to a letter that's going to government to help us get some more support and motion behind what we're trying to do, to say that once the site's built, they will use it. And also my conversations, the amount of organisations I spoke to said, if only you had it now, we could do X, Y, and Z, and we can do this, we can do that. Almost it's limitless when you talk to the supply chain in what they want to come and do on site. So we've got loads of interest, and like I say, commitment as well. We've got people actually committing to come and use the site once it's built. So yes.
Cool. Your role as director of both strategy and skills is, I guess you have a very good opportunity to embed and look at skills. Is presumably you come to this with some sort of understanding of challenges to do with skills in rail for the future. So how do you think that we'll be able to, well, one, do you think there's an issue with skills? And two is, how will the site help to upskill people, if it will?
So I'll talk about the skills part of my job just briefly in terms of the way I see it, because there's a social value piece of my role as well in the skills space. We are building on the site of an old coal mine, and in a large kind of deindustrialized area where, the economy isn't what it used to be, and there's large groups of local community that don't work or can't find work at the moment. One of the key roles is to try and utilise that community, so upskill them, so introduce them to rail. So young people who are coming to the end of their education, encourage them into STEM type subjects, encourage them into rail type roles, and hopefully train them on site, working with some of the partner FE colleges that we have locally, including Neath Port Talbot. But there's a whole group of people that used to work in the heavy industry that was in the area, who have a lot of the core skills that we can probably upskill and retrain in rail. You know, they're engineers, they're just not rail engineers yet, and you know, we can help retrain them. There's also the piece around how do we work with the industry to use the site to upskill, because I think there is a massive gap in skills in rail. Digital technology is coming very quickly, and we're not adapting quickly enough to it. So there's a whole piece around how we train people up in digital skills. And when I talk about digital skills, I don't mean using a computer or a spreadsheet. I mean digital signaling, which is very complex. Some of the analytical skills, some of the processing, all the kind of very, very complex componentry we have in rail now. But for me, the really complex bit is all the digital stuff links to something physical, which could cause an incident. So that's one of the unique things we're going to have at site. We are going to have that physical infrastructure that we can get onto and do work on and show people and get closer than anywhere else on the network. You know, you can't just close down the East Coast Main Line for 30 minutes to go and look at some signalling or to go and look at a switch. We can shut the site down for 30 minutes or plan it in one of our downtimes to go on and look at the physical asset that's being used day in and day out to do some of this work. The level of maintenance we'll have to do there, it will be massive. So there's going to be opportunities for people to come in and train through that. And also we're building close relationships with the local universities and the Ukraine universities to come and try and use the site for manual handling in their courses as well. I talked to someone from Birmingham recently, and it was so hard for them to get their students on the Network Rail site that they flew them out to Spain to go onto the railway in Spain so they could get some actual practical experience. And there's no criticism of Network Rail, by the way. You know, it's very different. There's a lot of hoops for them to jump through with PTS and all that sort of stuff. We will have a lot more flexibility on site that we can get people to come and see that physical infrastructure on site. So I think we can be at the heart of that training. Obviously, people aren't going to travel to the middle of South Wales to do a PTS course or to do some sort of standard training, but we're going to have some unique assets on site and some unique availability to those assets that I believe that's where we should focus our time and our energy on, working out how we can use those to improve the skills and the capability of the rail industry.
Brilliant. That's quite comprehensive, and you're going to be a very busy man.
Hopefully.
Final question, which is the one we ask most people, is what's your advice for new people to the industry? From your whole wise career, although you look still quite young.
That's very kind of you. That's not what my wife says to me. In fact, my wife just had a whole debate with me saying, I think you should shave your beard off, Rob.
Oh, wow.
And the kids normally always support me on this one. I said, what do you think? Yeah, you'd look really funny if you shaved your beard off. We'd laugh at you, was their response. So yeah. Anyway, what would I say? So it depends. If a young person coming into rail, my journey started very much on the front line. I started off as an assistant surveyor, I think was the title, working on London Underground, lugging kit about basically, and kind of I worked my way from there. But one thing I've done, and what's helped me, is I've never said no to an opportunity. So anytime someone's offered me an opportunity or asked me to do a piece of work, I've always tried it. And it hasn't always worked, and I haven't always done a good job, but I've always learned from it. And I've never worried about my job title when taking on a bit of work either. And that's done me very well. And there's so much in rail that you can get into and try. And people are open, and they're quite comfortable with people stepping outside of their lane to try stuff. And I'd encourage anyone getting into rail or anyone young who's just starting in rail to just always try and grasp those opportunities and try something different. In terms of suppliers, if there's new suppliers who are trying to get into the industry, persist would be one thing I'd say, because you will find some very, very good old school engineers that are quite stuck in the mud, and they will want to use the products they've got, and they will continue, and they'll have a fixed way of doing it. But for every one of them, you'll also find someone who's open to using a new bit of technology, that wants to try something different, that wants to progress and help your organisation. And you find a lot of honest people in rail as well. If they think your product's crap, they'll tell you. And if 10 people in rail tell you your product isn't for them, it's probably not. If one person does, that I wouldn't. You want 10. But I'd say persistence, it is something you need. But if you get that big contract, if you get into rail, it is a very sticky industry that actually people will continue to use your product. You'll generally have a good rate of return. You know, it is a good industry to be in as a supplier. Once you're in, the difficult bit is getting over some of those initial barriers.
Right. Good, encouraging words for everybody to hear. Rob, thanks very much. That was very incisive, and good luck with GCRE. Thanks for listening to another episode of What Moves Us. We hope we moved you. For more episodes, you'll definitely want to subscribe to our channel.
Till next time.